welcome. I was thinking about this golden age of board gaming that we live in. There are so many great games out there, so many wonderful themes, great mechanics, thousands and thousands of games just ready for us to pick up and play. It really is amazing. You have games like Dinosaur Island where you can create your own theme park filled with dinosaurs, or Deception where you can participate in an investigation. You have games that win Game of the Year like Ticket to Ride and Camel Up, where you can participate in a betting style camel race there, or go deep sea fishing like in Coldwater Crown, or go back to those days where a simpler time like in Pioneer days. It makes me wonder what must have been like to board game back in that time.
Oh wow, Cookie, these are delicious, what you call them?
Called beans.
Beans, huh? Well, that's one magical fruit. Hey, Cookie, you want to play one of them modern board games?
I reckon. You got anything new, Bart?
I sure do. The trading post just got a new shipment in today. I got it right here in the covered wagon. See what I did there? It's a wagon that's covered. Never mind. We got... Oh, hey, look! I got one of them there New Yorkies.
New York City?
No, it's a Yorkie. Never mind. All right. Here it is. Settlers of Catan.
What in tarnation you got there?
Is that new modern board game. I hear tell it uses a dice, but not the Pop-O-Matic.
How can a game not use the Pop-O-Matic?
I don't know, but I'm ready to play. Are you?
Let's give it a try.
All right.
Well, the games might have been good, but my goodness, those Pioneers were ugly.
The Arch Gaming Network is proud to bring you this board game review. Now here's your host, Sean Smith.
Hello, and thank you for stopping by. Today we are taking a look at Pioneer Days, which was designed by Matthew Dunstan and Chris Marling and published by Tasty Minstrel Games. Now, I want to say up front that I've received a review copy of this game from TMG. It's not a paid review, but I did want to say that I did receive the game to review. Now, Pioneer Days is a 2 to 4 player game. So this is a Western Pioneer Days theme, go figure, Pioneer Days theme game that some have likened to Oregon Trail. I don't know how fair that is. I don't believe anyone is dying of dysentery, but you are trekking across, the prairie lands with your wagon or wagons, and there are some diseases out there. But I think that's where the comparisons stop. It's certainly a much deeper game. Now this game features a dice drafting mechanic and resource management. You are traveling across the land in your wagons, and this takes place over 4 weeks. You need to be able to collect equipment, hire townfolk, prospect for gold, gather cattle, and manage your money. But at the same time, you must plan for disasters that could strike. So, why don't we take a look at the setup and how to play, and I'll give you my thoughts on the game on the other side. Alright, to set up Pioneer Days, the first thing you're going to do is take the main board and the scoreboard and place them side by side in the center of the table. For our tutorial though, we're going to move the scoreboard up so that we have a little more room on camera for some of the other components. All right, in our example, we're going to be playing a 2-player game, and we're going to play the standard recommended play for first-time players. So we're going to play as the brown and gold player. These are their score markers right here. They are little wagons, and on the back they have a +50. So place those face down. You're just going to place them kind of close to the start of the scoring track. Next, you're going to take a set of dice. There are 5 different colors, and you're going to place them into this bag, and then you will add 1 set of dice for each player. So in this case, we're going to have 3 sets of dice total into the bag, and then you're going to give this along with the little horseshoe to the start player. Each player is then going to choose a player board. Now, these boards are double-sided. There are a variety of characters to play with. We're going to play with the standard Pioneer side, which means that all of the starting resources and benefit or special power will be the same for all of them. But if you decide to play with the other side, they'll actually have a name, special starting resources, and each one will come with its own special power. So again, we'll play with the standard Pioneer, and we will place that to the side here. All right, you have some various resources in the game. For example, you have medicine, so you're just going to place those by the side of the board. Perhaps maybe in the frame. That would be nice.
Yes, indeed.
You have wood. Again, you place those in a pile. Lots and lots of silver. And cattle. All right. Now each player's starting board shows you what you will begin with right here. All right, so we're going to get a large wagon, a wood, a medicine, a cattle, and 3 silver.
Show me the money.
These are your wagon cards. They are double-sided. This is the large side, and the medium or small side, I think they call it, the small wagon. This will hold 4 items. Of course, this will hold 6 items. So you just place that to the side of your player board. You can take the rest of these and just place them to the side there for purchase later. Now each player will take their starting resources. So you get 1 wood, place it into a slot. 1 medicine, place that into a slot. You have the cattle. Now cattle does not go into a wagon slot. We like to keep the cattle right here at the top of the player board. Okay, on the main board here you have 4 disaster tracks. There is a disc with the color for each one. You're going to put that at the beginning of each disaster track. All right, there are 5 sets of Townfolk cards that come in the game. Each of them are lettered A through E, and what you're going to do is take 2 sets of these. So the recommended setup says that we will start with sets A and B. You can return the rest to the box, and we'll give them a good shuffling. Everybody shuffling, shuffling. Please don't boo me. I can hear you through the camera there. After you're done shuffling them, you're just going to randomly place them out underneath the 6 spots. There are 6 spots here at the bottom of the board. And you can just put the rest off to the side for a draw pile. Then you have the town cards. Now these town cards, there are specific needs that each town is looking for, and those things are listed here at the bottom. And what you're going to do is draw 9 of these cards, put the rest in the box. You can place those right here and then turn over the top 2. Next, we need to set up the general store. Now there is a bunch of equipment in this game, and this here tells you, this gives you an idea of all the pieces of equipment that you can add to your wagon. You see there's a bunch of them. Well, there are a bunch of tiles or tokens that represent those equipments. Now I have them face down right now, and we're going to place them here at the general store. You don't have to put them in 3 piles, but what you will do is you will take these and turn over a number of tiles equal to the number of players plus 1. And this will be the starting general store equipment tiles. You also have a bunch of gold nuggets. All right, these gold nuggets have values representing 1, 2, or 3 nuggets on them. You're going to place them into this gold bag and place that off to the side. All right, you also have a bunch of favor tokens in the game. This is a single favor. This represents 5 favors. Again, just place those into a pile. There are more than these. I'm just putting a few out for now. And finally, there are some damage tokens here. This is damage to your wagon. If you get these, they are -2 victory points at the end of the game for each one that you have. And it lessens the amount of stuff you can hold in your wagon. Again, you'll place these off to the side. Once you have all that done, you are now ready to begin. Okay, I've gone ahead and removed a number of the components from around the board, so we kind of focused in here on the main parts of the board and give us a little more room. The object of Pioneer Days is to get the most victory points, and the way that you're going to get victory points is, for example, by having cattle at the end of each week. You can also score victory points by taking care of the favors of a town at the end of each week. And then you also have these town folks that you can collect, and each of these have special victory point conditions that can give you those points at the end of the game. All right, let's focus in a little bit on your player board. Like I said earlier, we're going to play the standard size, which means all players are going to get the same starting resources of a large wagon, which has 6 slots for items, a wood, a medicine, 1 cattle, and 3 coins. Now, each pioneer will also have a special ability. They're all the same in the standard game. This one says that one of your townfolk is immune to disease. Disease, of course, will strike. We saw during the setup the disease track, and you're going to need medicine to give to your pioneers if a disease outbreaks. And so this is letting you know that at least one of them that you have will be immune. Now, your wagons can hold a number of items. Each wagon slot can hold 2 wood and 2 medicine. But you can't hold a medicine and a wood in the same slot. A slot can also hold 1 piece of equipment. We haven't talked about how to get equipment from the general store, but for our example, we are going to start with that piece of equipment there. Also, each slot can hold a gold token. So whenever you get one of these, you're going to place them face down. Cattle and townfolk do not take up a spot in your wagon. Neither does the silver that you collect. You only have the wood, the medicine, the gold tokens, and the equipment that will take up spots. If you should ever take damage during a storm, you will need to place one of these onto your player board. It's -2 points at the end of the game, and of course you can't store anything there. If there were items there and you had to damage it, you would lose those items. You're allowed, though, at any time to move items around your wagon or your wagons, because remember, you can add on to it, and any time during your turn you can buy another large wagon or turn it over and it's a small wagon, and then you would just add that onto your player board there. All right, a game of Pioneer Days lasts over 4 weeks, and each week consists of 5 days. So, quick math, you're going to have 20 turns during a game of Pioneer Days.
No way.
On your turn, the start player, whoever has that, is going to draw out a number of dice equal to the number of players plus 1. So we'll draw 3 dice, and we will roll them, and then the players are going to draft them. Now, on your turn, when you draft a die, The first thing you're going to do is see if that die face matches any of the symbols on the equipment you've previously obtained. So for example, if I were to take this blue die with the piece of wood on it, I am going to look for equipment that has that symbol. This one does have that symbol. Because it does, I will immediately get that bonus. Now we won't go over all of them, but if you take a look at the board here, you'll see that that symbol means that I will gain 2 silver. All right. So I think I will take this die and I will gain 2 additional silver. All right, now that I've decided to take this die, I have an option. Now, I can go ahead and play it for the symbol that's on here, or I could pay 3 silver to change this to any die face I want. But if I do change it to a different die face, and this face matches equipment that I have, it does not reactivate the equipment. Only when you initially select the die will you match it up to things in your wagon. Whenever you take a die, you will now have 1 action that you can take, and you have 3 choices, or may have up to 3 choices of actions that you can take with this die. Let's take a look at those now. All right, whenever you take a die, the first thing you can do is just turn it in and get silver. If you turned in the mask or like the jester hat there, you can get 1 coin. If you turned in a die that had the medicine face, you'll get 6 silver. All right, the second thing that you can do is to recruit a townfolk. All right, by using, of course, the symbol on the die, you're allowed to recruit that townfolk that is underneath it. All right, so townfolks can have 3 different benefits. One is that they could have, say, an immediate effect. And you'll notice that through a bell icon. This one says when you gain the card, you're going to gain 1 wood, medicine, or cattle. But it also comes with a victory point condition at the end of the game. For every piece of equipment you have in your wagon, you're going to get 1 additional victory point. There are also some that will have an ongoing benefit, so you're going to gain 3 silver after each raid. A raid is one of the 4 disasters. And this one says 1 victory point per gold token. You can tell it's an ongoing because of that symbol there. There are also some town folks that have a triggered event, and that'll look more like a gear icon. There aren't any in sets A or B, so you wouldn't have them if you're doing the standard first game. But these events usually are triggered when a certain die is selected or something that happens at the end of the week. The last thing you can do with a die is take the action that's listed along this track here. So, for example, if you had the pickaxe symbol, you're going to be allowed to take the gold bag and draw 1 piece of gold out of it, see what it is, and then place it face down into one of your wagon slots. Gold tokens at the end of the game score 1 victory point for every nugget visible on that token. If you take a die that says equip, then you're going to take 1 piece of equipment from the market and then place it into your wagon. This one here says that you gain 3 silver after each raid. How do I know? The player board that you have has an equipment list, and it does a wonderful job of listing what each piece of equipment does. If you take this symbol, you're going to get 1 cattle that you can place onto your player board. If you take this, you're going to get 1 wood, and this 1 medicine, and you will place those into your wagon. So in our example with the wood here, I think I'm going to hire a townfolk. I think I will go ahead and hire this one right here. And again, this one's going to give me a wood, medicine, or cattle right away, and then give me victory points at the end of the game for each piece of equipment I have in my wagon. Now, once something is taken, it is not refilled until the end of the week or the start of the next week. Therefore, these are first come, first serve. The same goes with the equipment. Once a piece of equipment is taken, or they're all taken, no more will be put out until the next week. All right, I'm going to take my Pioneer and just place it near my wagon. Again, doesn't go into the wagon. And then choose if I want wood, medicine, or cattle. This cattle I don't actually have. I know that at least one of my town folks is immune from diseases when a disaster strikes. So, and again, to protect your Pioneers, you need medicine. Whenever a storm comes, one of the disasters up here, you have to have a piece of wood for every wagon that you have. If you don't, that's when your wagon will take damage. So I think I'm protected, my wagon's protected, my townfolk is protected. I'm going to go ahead and gain a cattle. Now at the end of the week, each cattle is worth 3 points.
No, dear, that's wrong.
But I also need to mention something that you'll need to pay attention to when you're playing, and that is you have these cards here at the top. The towns are going to be wanting specific items at the end of the week. So for example, you're going to be looking at town folks who want 3 silver, a cattle, and 1 gold token. And another wants 2 wood. When you fulfill these, you will be gaining favor tokens. And every favor token that you gain is worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. So you'll want to be planning for these, because by the end of the week, if you want to fulfill those favors, you're going to want to make sure you have that stuff in your wagon. All right, after you've taken your turn, you're going to take the die and you're going to place it on the matching colored spot on the scoreboard. Then the next player is going to choose between those 2 dice. Okay, let's say she decides to take the equipment dice. She wants to put some more equipment onto her wagon, and she will take this one, which means anytime you take the die that has the steer head on it, you're also going to gain a cattle. So she'll do that, put it on her board, and place the yellow die there. Now, with whatever die is left over, this means that that track of the disaster track will move forward 1 space. As you can see, we don't have a black disaster track. So if the die that wasn't taken is black, then all of the disaster tracks will move up 1 space.
No!
Once any disaster reaches the end of a track, even if it's multiple on the same turn, those disasters will be resolved immediately, starting from the top to the bottom in this order. So let's talk about what these disasters are. If you have a storm, as we said earlier, you have to pay 1 wood for each wagon that you have. If you don't have enough, then you're going to have to take damage to your wagon. If you have a raid, you're going to lose half of your silver, rounded up. So in this case, we have 5, so we round it up to 6. We would lose 3 of our silver. During a famine, you have to pay 1 silver for every cattle that you have. So I have 2 silver left. These 2 are protected. Otherwise, for any cattle that you cannot save, those will be put back into the supply pile. And you must pay it. If you have it, you aren't allowed to just let the cattle go. You can't just be callous and let them go by not paying. You have to pay if you can. And then disease. If the disease track hits, you need to have 1 medicine for every pioneer that you have or townfolk that you have in your caravan. And then any pioneers that you don't have enough medicine then are discarded from the game. And although it's obvious, yes, you have to give medicine to your pioneers. You can't just let them go.
Well, Todd!
How callous can you be?
What?
Once a disease hits, you're going to reset the track back to the start. Now, that is considered the end of day 1. You will take the start marker, pass it to the next player. They will take the draw bag. They will draw 3 more dice out. All right, roll them, and then they will choose the first dice, or first die, then you will, and then you'll move the disaster track up for whatever die is left over. You're going to keep doing this until there are no more dice left in the bag. That will trigger the end of the week. After the last die is placed at the end of the week, you will move on to the end of the week phase. All right, now we move on to the end of the week phase. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look for any town folks that you have that have end of week scoring on them. Like I said, the sets of A and B really don't have any of those in there, so you wouldn't need to worry about it. But otherwise, you would look for that little gear symbol and wording on there that says that it triggers, and then score victory points accordingly. You're also going to get 1 victory point for every 2 cattle that you have. And so we have 2 cattle, so as the brown player, we will get 1 victory point. After we do that, we will then go to see if we can satisfy the needs of the towns. Well, as you recall from earlier, this one said, hey, send us 3 silver, a cattle, and 1 gold token, and we'll give you 4 favors. All right, well, I do have 3 silver. Okay, so I will pay that to the supply. I do have a cattle, so the poor little cattle goes away. Who knows what they're going to do with him? Maybe, probably just turn him into a pet, or maybe have him join the circus life. I don't know. And then 1 gold token. Well, I have 2 in here. I have one that has 3 nuggets on it, and one that has 1 nugget. Remember, these are victory points at the end of the game. I think I'm going to give the town, the cheapo, 1 nugget. For satisfying that, I am going to gain 4 of these favor tokens. Again, these favor tokens are worth 2 victory points each. If you ever need to swap them out, there is the 5 victory or the 5 favors that give you 10 victory points. The second card states that for 2 wood, you can get 2 favor. Now, it's important to note on this previous card here, the 3 silver, the 1 cattle, and the 1 gold token. If I could fulfill that again, you can. You can only fulfill these cards 1 time. So if I would have had another silver here, I could, in fact, do that. I have 3 silver, a cattle, and a gold token. I could get 4 more, but no, you can only do it once. The second card says 2 wood for 2 favors. I do have 2 wood, so I would take these 2 wood, turn them back into the supply, and I would gain another 2 favors. Once all players have had a chance to do that, you're then going to set up for the next round. So the first thing you'll do is you'll take all the dice and place them back into the bag. You're going to take the town folks that were not taken, all right, and those will go away, and you will put 6 new ones out. Then any equipment that wasn't taken will be discarded, and new ones will be put out again, equal to the number of players plus 1. The needs of the town have been fulfilled. You're now moving on to a new town, and so you will put 2 new cards out, read them aloud so everybody knows what the next towns are looking for. And now you're ready to start a new day. The next week is going to work exactly the same way. Taking dice, drafting, using the actions, and moving the disaster track up and resolving them as they occur. At the end of each week, you're going to go through the same steps of checking any Townfolk cards that have end of week scoring or any other end of week events, gaining a victory point for every cattle that you have, and then satisfying the needs of the town that you are now visiting. When you get to the final and 4th week, there will be a change at the end of that week. Before you visit the town, all of the disaster tracks will move up 1. So if this was how it looked like at the end of the 4th week, then you do move them up 1, and then you would take care of these disasters before you would go and satisfy the needs of the town. Once you have resolved any final disasters and fulfilled the needs of the town, you'll now tally up your score. The first thing you're going to look for are your gold nuggets. So you turn those over, you get 1 victory point for every gold nugget that you have. You're going to gain 2 victory points for every favor that you have. So you'll count these up and give yourself victory points for that. If you have the most favor, you're also going to get an additional 5 victory points. Next, you're going to score for your townfolks, and I added a few townfolk here just for our example. This first one, which we picked up earlier in the game, said 1 victory point per equipment that we have. Let's say we only finished with 1 piece of equipment, we would get 1 victory point. These cards can stack, so for example, this card and this card both say that you get 1 victory point per townfolk that you have. So actually you're going to gain 2 victory points for each townfolk. So this would be 2, 4, and 6 victory points. Finally, for any damage that you have in your wagons, you will take -2 victory points. If at any time you surpass 50 points, just flip this over and start over here at the bottom. And then the person with the most victory points is the winner of the game. And that is how you play Pioneer Days. All right, so that was Pioneer Days. Let's talk about the components. The components in this game, they are top notch. The artwork is great. You know, one example would be like the cards, the town cards that you put at the top of the board. When you flip them over, they continue kind of the panorama, maybe to a detriment because many times players forget about those cards up at the top of the board because they do blend in very well. And overall, the artwork is really well, especially very time period-esque. If that's a word, I don't know. Now the main board, it is thick, a very good quality component. It's easy to read. The colors pop, especially like on that disaster track. The scoreboard is also well made, very thematic. I do think it's a little difficult, a little odd, scoring wise, moving your wagon around during the scoring. I don't know, there's just something about it that I think could have been done maybe a little better, but overall it's still a good board. There's great wooden components in there. You got the cattle and the wagon for the score markers, the horseshoe, and you know, some other bits in the game that are very well done, well designed. The dice are certainly amazing. These are great dice. They have great color on them, and they're etched in. They're very easy to read. The cardboard components in this game are all thick components. They did not skimp on the quality of the cardboard and really any of the components that are in the game. The player board that you have, it's double-sided, and it lists all of the equipment that you can get and what each of the pieces of equipment do. I think it's a very well-designed player aid card. I do tend to wish that the writing was a little bit bigger. I know they were trying to squish a lot of information onto that board, but it does get a little difficult to read what some of the equipment does. But again, that's minor. You know, again, all the different components in the game are very, very well done. All right, so let's talk about the gameplay. I really have enjoyed playing Pioneer Days. I'm already a sucker for Western themed games, so that's certainly helped. But I've also played this game multiple times, and I've used different strategies just about every time that I've played. For example, do you go for townfolk, you know, to try and stack them for victory points at the end? Or maybe you go for a lot of cattle and try to score points at the end of each week. Or maybe your path to victory is going to be a prospector and you're going to try to fill up with as much gold to get those kind of victory points. You have to use all of the different strategies in this game. You can't focus just on one, but as the game plays out, either through circumstance with what cards were available to you, or maybe a decision of a direction you're choosing to go in, you tend to need to focus more on one strategy, but you still have to play all of them to be able to maximize your winning potential in the game. The player count in this game is 2 to 4 players. I like the game at 2 or 3 players. 4 players works fine. The only difference, I think when you get to 4 players, there's more fighting over the equipment and the townsfolk. And because of that, I tend to like the game more at 2 or 3. Now from the looks of the game and by the way that it plays, it seems like it should be a light game. But it almost has a medium weight feel to it. This game forces you to plan ahead. Because of that looming disaster track, you are constantly having to figure out what kind of resources you're going to need and how you want to plan that out to make sure that you can protect as much or everything that you have built up through the different turns. There are multiple paths to victory, so you are constantly trying to think, what is going to be my best way to try and win this game? And you do have tough decisions to make with the die that you draft. For example, you'll notice when you play it, you're like, do I take a certain die now so that I can take an action that I really, really want to do? I need to do this other action, but I'm afraid the thing that I really want may not be available if I wait another turn. Will that disaster be staved off and get that other turn so that hopefully I can get that die on the next turn? There's a nice back and forth balance there to how you choose the die. On top of that, I love the fact that you have 3 choices, usually have 3 choices in the actions that you can take with a particular die, whether you're going to try to recruit a townsfolk or just take money because you need to buy a bigger wagon, or maybe to pay for some, a town favor at the end of each week. Or are you going to actually take that action of maybe getting wood, medicine, cattle, or some equipment or whatnot? I like that you have that tough decision. It does feel tough that you're not quite sure, is this really what I should do? Or should I wait until next turn and hope that I can do something? The disasters in the game can be devastating if you don't plan accordingly for it. You always have to keep your eye out on the town goals as well, that come out at the end of each round. And it never feels like you have quite enough time to do everything that you want to do, because you want to make sure you have the stuff to fulfill the town's needs at the end of the weeks, because you can get some valuable favor tokens and victory points. But there's always that impending doom of that disaster track that's coming, and making sure that you have protected your townfolk or your cattle or your wagons or whatever, so that you can, again, maximize your gameplay. Even still, with all the things that you're thinking about, the game is still pretty straightforward to teach. I've taught this game to several different players, and everyone picks it up very easily. There's not a whole lot of confusion there. The symbology in the game is pretty straightforward. And like I said, the player aid cards has like all the different equipment that you can do. So it's pretty straightforward as far as teaching the game and playing it as well. I love that there's player variability that you can use. Whether you're going to use, everyone's going to use the standard Pioneer, or turning the player board over and everybody starts with different resources and a different special power. I like playing with that other side. Certainly adds to the enjoyment of the game. I like that there are multiple Townfolk decks to choose from. There are 5, A, B, C, D, E, E. So there are 5 decks that you can choose from. And you choose 2 of them and put them together, and that forms the Townsfolk that you'll use for this particular game. There's also 9 town cards that you can use there. Well, there are more than 9 town cards, but you just put out 9 per game. This really adds to the replayability of each game. So I really have had a great time with Pioneer Days. I would really recommend it, and I give this game a 9. Now, if you've enjoyed this review, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Check out our other great content. And once again, I thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for visiting the Arch Gaming Network. For more great content, check us out at archgamingnetwork.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook.
Cookie, what do you call these?
These are called beans.
Okay, and go.
You said ain't going. I was in mid stand up.
Yep.
Here comes the car.
You ruined the whole shot! All right, let's do that.
And then there's this weird pilgrim who showed up in weird clothing. I threw your name in there because
That's okay.
no one knows who you are.
That's right.
You could just be Sean P. Daddy, PQ Smooth. Like there's something in there.
All right, no cars.
Oh, I got to put my britches. They're going down.
Hey, that's gonna be that right there. That's gonna be in the cut. You want to play?
Is it like poker? Can I shoot you afterwards?
You know, I tried to go with the ad lib.
Archgamingwork.net. Check it out. He'll be there.
Take
I
40.
might be there.
Take 40.
Take
All right.
745.
All right, here we go. Oh, Bear, I need you again. Come here, Bear. Dang it.
You might want to call the agent.
We're going to hear from his agent.
Hopefully he was all right there.
Bear, you did fantastic. Sean,
That's why you get the
7
big
more
bucks.
takes.
And that's a wrap.